This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites to online stores to blogs, Squarespace has something for everyone who wants to boost their online presence. More on them later in the video.
Hey man, you know this stupidly massive Minas Tirith I'm building? You fancy lending me a hand with it?
Yeah man, that's looking great. What can I do for you?
You'll be able to build a house for me, right?
Yeah man, I'm sure I can get that done, not a problem.
And you'll be able to get it in the post in, say, a week? Well, yeah, awesome, fantastic. Alright, thanks man, I'll talk to you later, bye.
He wants it done in a week? Okay, so if you're watching this, it's more than likely that you're already aware of Lockie from Azorpazop's stupidly massive lockdown community project, the absolutely insane Minas Tirith build. Started at the beginning of the first lockdown, so almost 2 years in the making, and that's just so far, this scale replica of Minas Tirith has been an absolute spectacle that I have loved seeing progress, from the outer walls and battlements, all the way to the latest build consisting of some of the more inner streets of the White City. I was totally stoked to be asked by Lockie to be part of this amazing collaboration project along some of my favourite YouTubers, and despite the short turnaround, it was something I knew I definitely wanted to be part of. I know there's quite a diverse group of people working on this project, and whilst I want my building to fit in with the rest of the Minas Tirith build, I want to somehow make this building unique and personal to me. In real life, I love animals, and having grown up on a small holding and now working for a pet store, I wanted my building to represent this in some way. So why not build my own mini Minas Tirith menagerie? Given that I'm on a time limit and this has to be posted to Australia, I'm keeping it relatively small scale and as simple as possible. Whilst I'd love to build something more complex and impressive, my time constraints are very much more limiting. I won't go into too much detail on how I built the basic shell of my mini menagerie, because, well, if you've watched any of Lockie's videos, you'll already know a lot of the techniques I'm using. Once I designed my building, I made a bunch of templates which I cut out of card, and used these to cut out all the wall sections using my Proxxon hot wire cutter. A craft knife would work just fine for cutting this XPS foam, but I have the toys, so I'm going to use them. With all the sections cut out, I drew the brick lines, scored and widened these with a craft knife and my mould line remover, which was the perfect width for the job, and then added in some texture with some crumple up aluminium foil. With the pieces all textured, I cut out a piece of Foamex, beveled the edges and sanded them smooth before gluing down the building. To add a bit more texture to the front courtyard, I cut up some foam into paving slabs before texturing them and gluing them down individually. This was a bit time consuming, but I think the effect was worth it. With the glue dry, I added everyone's favourite foam crafting staple, Mod Podge and black paint, to the entire piece to give it more protection before covering it again with a medium grey base coat. Again, I roughly followed Lachlan's painting guides and painted some individual bricks in different colours before dry brushing the whole piece in a slightly off-white, and finally made my own wash using matte medium, rinse aid and black ink, which was then slathered all over the entire piece to give me a more uniform colour and add some contrast and definition to the texture I added earlier. With the stonework painted, I turned my attention to the roof and cut out individual roof tiles out of cereal box card before gluing them down on a roof template. I spray painted the roof sections black and then used my airbrush to paint them in a bluish hue to somewhat match the slate colour of the roofs of Minas Tirith. Before gluing the roof down, I made one last addition, which in hindsight I should have probably done much earlier in the build. I cut out a hole in the bottom of the building and stuck in a flickering tea light. which would either make it look like there's a nice welcoming, warming fireplace, or the building is burning down. I'll let you be the judge on that one. With the roof tiles glued down, the main structure is complete, and I'm pretty happy with how it's looking so far. But it definitely doesn't look like the menagerie I had planned for it to be. But before we get on with the detailing, let me tell you a bit about this video's sponsor. Now, I have long considered setting up a website to support my YouTube channel, but the thought of trying to set one up when you're not particularly tech savvy like I am was really off-putting. That was until Squarespace reached out to me. I had no idea that setting up a website could be so simple. Using some preset templates, I added my own headers, images and text, and boom, I have a website that looks like it was made by a professional. I'm particularly excited about starting my own blog to accompany the channel. There's loads of stuff I'd like to talk about, including reviews, unboxings, and personal projects that might otherwise not make it onto YouTube, so this is the perfect way for me to share these with you. If you fancy setting up your own blog or setting up a website, then visit squarespace.com/Benji's Hobbies to receive 10% off your first purchase. Okay, back to making this plain building into my mini Minas Tirith menagerie. And I'm going to need a name for it, and probably some signage as well. I think I know someone who can probably help me with this. Hey Dewi, I know you're a bit of a whiz at designing 3D models. How would you fancy helping me out and making a mini Minas Tirith menagerie pet shop sign?
Design, yeah, I do a little bit of that.
Well, I've got these amazing drawings that I've done. What do you think?
Those drawings are excellent. I will get something to you right away.
Thanks dude, you're an absolute legend. Right, back to the build. So whilst Dewi's working on my signage, I'm going to work on the rest of the details. I have a bunch of barrels and fences that came with a plastic Rohan house kit, which will be perfect for storing animal feed and for keeping some of the animals from escaping. I also need someone to look after all the pets of Minas Tirith, so I turned to Hero Forge to help create my own character to do this for me. Hero Forge has so many options and it's a fun program to play with, so it's easy to get lost in character design, but eventually I settled on this chap, who I'm going to call Levanian. Whilst Levanian looks after all the animals in the menagerie, I imagine him to also be a falconer who helps with controlling all of the vermin that might be living inside the walls of Minas Tirith, so I gave him a hawk on his arm as well. We see and hear of quite a few animals mentioned throughout The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Salted pork.
Sausages, nice crispy bacon.
So it's pretty safe to assume that you'd be likely to find cats, dogs, goats, chickens and pigs in Gondor, and there's no reason why they wouldn't be sold in my mini menagerie. I painted all of these up, and then it was time to start gluing Levanian and all of the cute little creatures in place. Before I glued the goat, the sow and her litter of piglets in their respective pens, I wanted to make sure I gave them some bedding, so I added some PVA glue and then added this yellowish brown flock to simulate hay. Whilst this was drying, I added a few patches of grass and shrubbery in the cracks around the walls and between the flagstones, which suggests to me that Levanian's attention isn't necessarily on upkeep, but more on looking after the pets in his care. By the time all my animals were in place, Dewi had come through with this amazing sign for my menagerie, and I couldn't be happier with how they've turned out. Dewi is not only a talented 3D designer, but also has a YouTube channel called Guardians of Wiltshire. Make sure you go and check out Dewi's work, which I've linked down in the description below. I decided to name the menagerie Baruthiel Pet Supplies after Queen Baruthiel of Gondor, who, whilst not being the warmest character by all accounts, was known for being the owner of 10 cats. She's only mentioned in passing by Aragorn whilst the Fellowship were traversing their way through Moria, and only references her cats as being able to see well in the dark, but it felt like a fitting name for a Gondorian pet store. With my signage glued in place, my menagerie is finally finished and ready to be sent off to its new home in Australia. I just really hope it gets there in one piece. So I really want to thank Lockie for letting me be part of this amazing collaboration, alongside some truly outstanding YouTubers who I know will have put my efforts to shame. Given a bit more time, I definitely think I'd have done things a little differently, but overall I'm pretty happy with the results for such a quick build. Make sure you go and check out all of the other videos that you'll find linked down in the description below. There are some absolutely stunning efforts there, which I'm excited to see more of when their videos are released at the same time as this one. Finally, make sure you go and check out Squarespace, who are this video's sponsor. I've included a link down in the description where you can not only get a free trial, but when you're ready to launch your website, you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website domain. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video. Mini Minas Tirith Menagerie. Mini Minas Tirith Menagerie. Mini Minas Tirith Menagerie. It's a bit tough to say that.